everybody. Good evening. How's it going out there? And before we start, I have to say, I just want to play this little bumper here. Hold on a second. No, this is not This Week in Trek. This is actually On the Record, where we talk about music, life, production, whatever we talk, music-related, and things that aren't related to music. And so this week, for the very first inaugural edition, episode, whatever it is. It starts with an E, I know that.
Yeah.
We have, from the band Gideon's Mob, Mr. Brian Urso. Thank you for joining us today, Brian.
Thanks for having me, Rob. I appreciate it.
No problem. We were talking backstage a little bit before, and we have a couple things in common already. And you'd be glad to know that, while I don't have a whole lot of sponsors, there is one that did take to my show almost immediately. So we have to acknowledge first this commercial ad to pay the bills.
Need a new car? Looking for that business vehicle or ornaments to conquer a small nation? At Cobra Commander's Sharp Auto Sales, we want to put you in your next vehicle. We have everything to meet your work, family, or military needs. Check out this His Tank. It can be yours for no money down and only $2.99 a month. Need something more versatile? How about this Stinger Jeep? Fully armored, missile launcher included. Only 40,000 miles, most of which are non-combat. We've also got Rattlers, Night Ravens, and the all-new Ford Escape. And now we're offering 0 payments for 6 months, or until Destro can formulate a plan to take over the banks. Remember, at Cobra Commander's Sharp Auto Sales, we're not just a car dealer. We're an evil terrorist organization determined to rule the world. And we're certified by the Better Business Bureau. So come on down to Cobra Commander's Sharp Auto Sales for a test drive on Route 1 in Springfield. Follow the signs at the bomb craters. Free balloons for the kids. Come on down! Cobra!
I tell you, man, that's where I get all my automotive needs met. Great service department too.
I figured I'd just wait until Biden would just leave a bunch of weapons in my front yard, and I just get in there that way. But Cobra looks good too.
Yeah, let me tell you, they keep I tell them, no, guys, I don't need the landmine option. Okay, I don't need to deploy any landmines. Yeah. All right, that could come in handy with the people following too close. So Brian,
yeah, Gideon's
Mob. Okay, I was listening to some of your stuff. Very avant-garde, very progressive rock. Very interesting sound. Tell me about the band. Tell me how long you've been in music. Tell me about everything. Tell me how you got started in music, first of all.
Well, I was lucky. When I was about 4, my dad got me into music. He introduced me to bands like, the Beatles and Floyd and Emma Slick and Palmer. And then my other uncle, my dad's brother, got me into like Sabbath and Zeppelin and heavier stuff. So when other kids were listening to like books and records and stuff like that, I was listening to like, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath and stuff like that. So I was hooked, and from that point on, I was like a sponge. I would listen to everything. I mean, mostly progressive rock and metal, but I love jazz, and in fact, I've been a jazz musician since '91. I've been playing in clubs. But I just became a sponge, just soaking up all these different types of music. But my favorite's always been progressive rock. There's something there about there's a lot of room to spread your wings. There's a lot of room to you don't have to rush the music as much. There's more complex chords, more complex melodies, more complex rhythms. It's just more like an advanced type of music that I love the best. I like to be able to challenge myself. So that's sort of where I started.
Yeah. Well, let me ask about when did you actually first pick up an instrument?
I started playing guitar when I was 10, but then I didn't get serious till I was about 13. So it's been about 38 years.
Really? Wow. See, I came into it a little bit later. I picked up a guitar when I was maybe 16.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my older brother who was a guitar player. He had he took lessons, and did you do the whole thing, like work crummy jobs to like bagging groceries or whatever to afford lessons, or were you self-taught? Or
Well, at first I was self-taught, and then I took lessons. Then at that point, yeah, I had to work at a golf club, and it was awful. It was it was just like it was almost like Caddyshack. It was this real snooty golf club I worked at, and I used to have to do clean the carts. But what I would do is when the boss wasn't there, I used to take the governors off the carts. So the carts, everybody's carts would go like 10 miles an hour. Mine would do like 15 to 20. I took the governor off. And so, yeah, I worked at a golf course to pay for everything. And it took a long time to, I wouldn't say until I got good. It probably wasn't, I'd say I got my first gig when I was probably 17. And then when I was 18, 19 onwards is when I started to play professionally in clubs.
Okay, so the first gig you were about 17. What year was this about?
Oh, let me see. That would probably be 1990.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got a couple years on you, even though I don't look it. So, yeah. But anyway,
I thought you were younger than me, actually. So
a lot of people think that. Yeah, because there's not much happening back up here. So I mean, that's gone. So
yeah, I was totally sober when I was 19 when I graduated high school. So I'm a little like Steve Martin. I've always looked silver. So yeah. So.
Okay, so your first paying gig, I imagine, was you were 17.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. What tell us about that band? Did you have the horrible experience everybody has with their first gig?
It was okay. It wasn't great. I mean, I know at one point I stepped. This is before wireless. At one point I stepped on the jack and pulled it out of the guitar and couldn't figure out why the guitar wasn't working for about 5 minutes. And then it is mid song, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So then I had to go find it and grab it and stick it in, and that was about it. It wasn't too bad. I was just, I just played guitar in that band. It was just, it wasn't anything great. It was just a, covers band, nothing big.
Yeah.
That's what everybody starts. Nobody really starts out their own original music when they first. It's rare, So it was just a covers band, and it was fun. 4 guys just having fun,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's usually how everybody starts. You start playing. Everybody brings a song they want to do or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and then somebody says, "Oh yeah, I wrote a song." And, then they look at you like you're from Tentacles. Like, really? You wrote that?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, no, guys. Like, it's okay, but then, now, you're 17. You're playing. You start playing in a band.
Right.
When did you make the leap to writing your own music?
That didn't happen until college because when I went to university, I got my degree in occupational therapy. But when I went to college, I started to just write instrumentals because I didn't have a lot of confidence in my voice. I still don't have a lot of confidence in my voice, but I used to write just basically instrumentals, like either in a jazz vein, like George Benson or like Pat Metheny, or I would do it like in a rock vein, like Steve Vai or Satriani type instrumentals, and that was it. And I would. And back then, I mean, they didn't have like DAW software where you could record anywhere, for cheap. Back in the early 90s, you had to go to a studio, and it was it was expensive.
Oh yeah.
So I would record maybe once a year, and record one song, and then that would be it for a while, and then save up some money, and then go back in and record some more. But it was cool because then what I would do is I had friends that worked at the radio station at Duquesne University, and they would play it on DUQ, which is a jazz station. So it would go out all over the city, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, geez, back then, thinking back, it was like the Stone Age, really.
Really
compared to now.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about leaps in technology. I remember when I started to teach guitar back in the early 90s, I had one student that wanted to learn this Randy Rhoads solo. So I'm like, okay, hold on. So I had to this is tape. So you had to rewind, stop, listen. Okay. There, stop. There was no, YouTube, there's no check online for tablature or something like that. This was all by ear, you know. So now it's just press of a button and you got everything you need, you know.
Yeah, I mean that was the experience I had with my guitar instructor. It is actually a woman who taught me, which is actually someone said, isn't it weird taking guitar lesson from a woman? I'm like, no, not really. She knows what she's talking about.
I had whenever I graduated college, I went and started teaching full time. And like I would work my occupational therapy gig, 7 to 3, and then from 5 to like 9 every night I would. Because when you're in your 20s, you're invincible. You can do anything.
Oh yeah.
So like from 4 to 7, I would teach at the guitar store, and then from 9 to 1, I'd go do a gig, and then I'd go to sleep, wake up at 6, do it all over again. Well, some of my best students were girls. They really were.
And this is actually, she did have a lot of female students too.
Yeah.
And like I said, a lot of them were much more dedicated than the guys.
Right.
Yeah. And they, they pay a lot more attention. And I was talking to Mecca about this last night. In the Lamborghini car factory, the division of labor is the men do all the mechanical work and the women do all the fine detailed work, like the upholstery, the interiors and stuff like that. Like I said, and I really do wish a lot more women would get into guitar. I have four nieces. Mm-hmm. I asked one of them. I said, "Sammy, you want to learn how to play guitar?" I was going to give her my hammer, just as a loaner. And she goes, "No, that's okay." I'm like, "You sure? I'll teach you how to play." No, that's okay. I'm like, I really, and you think about all the, the female musicians, like Joan Jett, the Runaways, the Go-Go's, and the Bangles who were actually good before they went to Columbia and started wearing the stupid makeup and the clothes. Yeah.
Well, it's a shame because like you look at guitar isn't that, it's popular now, but it isn't like it was what it was, maybe 20 years ago. But now it just sort of is a backseat. Production values have gone downhill big time, and it would be nice to see some more girls do it, pick it up. I mean, you look at Nancy Wilson from Heart, she's great. You look at Jennifer Batten, who was a monster guitar player.
Oh God, who's the blues guitarist? There's a black lady from the '60s. I can't remember who it is.
Oh, I know who you mean.
She's the SG, and she's just wailing. Yes. Oh God, she's phenomenal.
She had a white SG.
Yeah.
It might have it might have been a Les Paul because they called those early SGs Les Paul. So
it's 61. Yeah.
So what was her name? That's gonna drive me crazy now.
No, I'm gonna have to look.
Really good.
Black woman blues guitarist, 60s. She was fantastic.
Yeah, so I mean, like it's another one that kids don't.
Is it Sister Rosetta Tharpe? Is that it?
Be it. Put in SG. See if that's it.
Gibson SG. Okay. Sister. I think it's Sister Rosetta Tharpe. I think it is.
Yeah.
That's her. Yeah, that's her.
Yeah. It's just like it would be great to see young girls playing that. That'd be fantastic. I'd love to see that. And for a while I was hoping like that. Like when Taylor Swift first started, I had a lot of. And I guess she started like in the early '80s. No, when did she start? She probably started late. Yeah, that's her.
Yeah,
like in the late 2000s, I think is when she started. She just played acoustic guitar. I'd get a lot of girls that wanted to learn Taylor Swift stuff, and I thought that was great. I thought this was maybe like a new thing. Maybe it would re-energize, But it didn't take too long, And I think like a lot of things, the internet kind of killed the guitar lesson industry.
Well, it's not. It's kind of a weird thing because I always tell people. Granted, it's not an easy instrument to learn.
No,
but I always tell people, listen, if I can do it, you can do it.
Right.
Okay. And I would say I'm the biggest imbecile going. All right.
It doesn't take long to get. Pretty competent pretty quick either. I mean, you can play like some pretty basic songs pretty quick, and I think if people stick with it, they'll do great. But it takes a certain madman that wants to do it constantly, and so that was my obsession. I could eat, sleep, drink guitar constantly, and
Oh yeah, I mean there'd be days where I would just have the guitar on me all day long.
yeah. Well, when I first started playing in high school, I came home. When I started getting really serious in high school, I came home my freshman year with like 2 Ds or something. My mom was like, "Okay, you're done. No more guitar." And so like for like a month, I wasn't allowed to have it. And then I finally got my grades back up. But yeah, I mean, it's you get obsessed with it, And then what's funny is after a while, it sort of becomes second nature to you. You don't even think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the first guitar you ever bought?
First guitar that I ever had was I had an Epiphone S600. It was a like a Strat style they had in the 80s, and like an idiot, I traded it away to get something else instead of just buying something up. And I've been kicking myself. I got rid of it, I think, in '91, and I've been looking for that same guitar ever since. I still can't find it, but I should have kept it. Everybody, folks, if you're listening, always keep your first guitar.
That's Well, and sadly, I don't have my first guitar.
Yeah, I wish I would have kept mine. But yeah, that was my first, and then I dabbled around with Fenders. I never liked Fenders, but yeah, Gibsons and Gretches and Ibanez are my favorites. That's mostly what I play the most part.
What do you use on this album here?
The first album was all a Les Paul and a Ibanez RG. And then that was the debut album. And on the Space Cadet Supernova, I use a bunch of different guitars. I use an SG on one track. I use a Les Paul 60 reissue on one. I use a Steve Vai Gem on one. I use a Gold Top Duo Jet Gretsch on one, and an Electromatic on another. So I really feel, and then this one we're recording now, there's a lot more different guitars. It's going across the spectrum. I'm even using I also use on the first two a Takamine Classical and Innovation too. I forgot to use those two as well. But but this album coming up is going to have a lot more guitars.
Yeah. See, I got a Gretsch on the Electromatics, the G5220.
They're fantastic.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got a Lemon.
Really?
Yeah, I've bought it to 3 different guys. They can't set it up.
Is it the neck or what's the problem?
It's the neck. The neck. The first guy set it up, and it progressively got flatter as you went up the neck, and it just developed. And it had an insane amount of fret buzz that to the point where it was unplayable.
Did you how warm or how damp is the place where you keep it?
Actually, it's not damp. It's kind of a comfortable humidity, but it's not like tropical. Yeah. I usually keep it in the case though.
Yeah, that's interesting because even if you keep it in the case, usually it's better to keep them in the case. People forget that. And I usually like to try to keep it like between 55 and 60, humidity wise. If you get too much, it's going to bow one way. If you do it the other way, it's going to bow the other way. And it's a pain in the ass.
Mega says I'm right by the river. Yeah, but the funny thing is it didn't affect it. It hasn't affected my Les Paul. It hasn't affected my Casino. Hasn't affected and the Hamers I have.
Yeah.
So
you
just
might
this.
Have got one. That's the problem. You just might have got one. I remember that the only Fender I ever bought was a Fender Telecaster, and I worked on it more than I played it. So I said, "Hell with it." So
the neck, the second guy I brought it to, the neck eventually developed a back bow, a slight back bow to it.
So you could play it a little bit then.
Yeah, well, actually, that's it. That's contributed. Like I said, it had an insane amount of fret buzz, and I couldn't play it. It was just I really didn't want to play it. Yeah. So I brought it to this other guy, and he got it better, but the low E was almost a semitone flat at the octave than it was at the open string.
And that's,
which is
that's through body, right? I mean, that's one piece of wood, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. As awesome as they are, like with through body guitars, is you can't take the neck and take it off and bake the neck for a little bit and then see if that makes a difference.
I think it's I'm not sure. Well, anyway, I'm probably gonna just part with it. They have 3 strikes and you're out.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the saying, I got a case. I was really looking forward. I'm like, spent more time sitting in the case than me playing it. So it's really disappointing.
No, I get that. That's frustrating as hell. And I've been like that with some amps. Some amps I've taken to real quick. Some amps, like the amp on the second album and then this album, I love. It's my favorite amp. I use a Steve Vai Legacy carbon head, but I have it through a Marshall half stack. But it took me, I would say, 7 months to get used to that amp.
Yeah,
because it is night and day different. It's closer to a Bogner amp than it is.
Oh yeah.
So, and I went from a Marshall to that, and that's like night and day. So when I first got it, I was like, I hate it. I hate this amp. I fucking hate it. I don't know why I have it. And my buddy who does like reps for a bunch of different companies, like, dude, that amp is like night and day compared to what you had. You have to just be patient and wait. And patient is like not even the same district with me. I have the patience of a fruit fly on meth. So I was like, okay. So it probably took about 6 or 7 months till I dialed in a tone. Because you think, okay, it's an amp. I put it on. I can put the gain up to 10, and I'm set. No, that's not how it works with amps. I figured out the hard way. I mean, like a 10 on my Marshall half stack is like, with that Legacy Carvin, I'm like a 5 or 6, and that's plenty. It's interesting.
Yeah. Morbid Mr. Roboto says double guitars is playing them difficult and hard to get a good sound. I've never played a double. I never played a double necker.
I've played them. I don't own one. I do want to own one. It's not as hard as people think. It's harder to play if you're not shredding, if you're just playing like just straight rock, it's okay. I mean, it's very hard to shred on for me at least, because I like to play my guitars higher, and it's no problem playing the top part of a double neck because it's up high to begin with, but it feels alien to me playing a double neck because the lower part hangs lower, so I have a hard time getting some speed on it that way. But yeah. I do want to get one. I've been kicking the idea around for a while of buying one. The problem is they're so expensive.
Oh yeah. Mr. Roboto, if you think playing a double neck is difficult, Brian probably knows where I'm going with this. I mean, what do you think? What do you imagine that's like?
Oh, I don't know how Rick has the back to do that.
Well, he does. I saw him back recently. He doesn't play it anymore. Well, he didn't play that night. So, but he's actually, Rick's getting old. We're all getting older, but he probably doesn't want to play it anymore because that thing's got to be heavy.
Well, I'm surprised they don't just make an industrial stand for it. They can just walk up to it and just play it.
Yeah.
So, it's funny is my the guitar store I worked at, the owner Vic Dupre, this guy knows more about Les Pauls than anybody. He's written 5 books on it, and Gibson actually made a guitar based on him. But he's good friends with Rick, and Rick's been in the store a bunch of times.
Yeah, I've met Rick. I've met Rick once or twice. Actually,
he's a nice guy.
Oh yeah, he's a terrific guy.
Yeah,
you kidding me?
Underrated player.
Yeah, I mean he's not flashy, but he's just solid.
Rick, what he does is fantastic, and I think he gets overlooked a lot because he got sandwiched in the 70s with these guitar heroes, and he gets overlooked a lot.
Yeah. There was is that just a gimmick though? What's the point of the 5 neck? The point of the 5 neck was that to prove that they could make it and that he could play it.
They could make it, yeah. I mean, it isn't like it's like the double neck had one's a 12 string, one's a 6 string. Like Mike Rutherford from Genesis One was a bass, one was a guitar. That one is purely just let's see how crazy we can make it.
Did you ever hear the actually the story about Tom Peterson? He was playing 8-string basses when they were in Chicago, and Joe Danzig and Paul Hamer just started out, and he said to them, "Can you make me a 12-string bass?" And they said, "Tom, I don't know if it's going to work. Might be too much tension. Just make it." He said, "Just make it and see what happens." And he made, and that's how they started with making the 12-string bass.
Well, if you think about a lot of that is the experimental stuff. He started in the 70s.
Yeah,
not only with the music but with the equipment. And it's one where solid state stuff came in as opposed to tube. That's when smaller transistors came into play as opposed to larger ones.
Mm-hmm. Oh, did I lose Brian? I think I lost Brian. Well, he'll let's see. He'll join us. Oops. Is he back? He's not back. Well, this is awkward. Oh, Brian. Honest question. Are they all tuned different strings? Some of them might have an open G. Some of them might have, it's different tuning. Drop D tuning. That's for him to know. That's between him and his guitar tech. Dropped out. Let's see if we can get Brian back. Oh, there he is. Oopsie.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know.
But anyway,
you got a gremlin loose. But I was saying you were saying about the 70s, though. Yeah, there was a period actually in time from like maybe about, I'd say 71 through 75, where you had a lot of really interesting stuff going on musically. A lot of different genres, a lot of different styles. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic period.
I think I love the Beatles. That's my favorite band of all.
Oh God!
But the '60s were great, but I don't think it wasn't until the '70s where you had every fucking genre in the '70s were doing their best stuff. You had progressive rock, which was making amazing music. You had the birth of metal. You had amazing R&B. And funk. That's when Stevie Wonder did those amazing albums. Then you had my second biggest influence, David Bowie. That's when he started. I mean, you name a genre, even country. Like that's when you had it got away from the Nashville sound, and you had that more of like a highwaymen. They started forming, and that's the country I like. The '60s and '70s is my favorite era for country. But all these genres, they were all doing fantastic stuff. And it was pushing the envelope stuff. And now you don't see that as much,
No, everything's very homogenized now. Everything's very, very
outlaw country. Thank you, Mac. I couldn't figure it. Yeah. Outlaw country started, and that was just great stuff. And sadly, we don't see that music anymore. We don't, it's a shame because I think that there needs to be a return to form. There needs to be a break away from the pop stuff. And if you're going to do pop stuff, make it really awesome. I thought whenever Pharrell came out with that song Happy, that we were going to get back to that R&B 70s style and maybe 80s style. But that was just a one-shot thing. And it went back to that hip-hop stuff, which... that's great if people like. It's not my thing,
Yeah. Well, Tim Rice, who wrote Jesus Christ Music Star, he actually said something very interesting. He said to Jeremy Clarkson of all people from Top Gear. He said, Jeremy Clarkson's a global treasure.
First of all, he punched Piers Morgan in the face. That alone is enough to make me love the man for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I mean, geez. Jeremy Clarkson said something, Jeremy Clarkson said, "Speed never killed anybody."
Right.
Suddenly coming to a stop does.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but Tim Rice was on Top Gear, and he actually said, Well, one of the big differences is now is that back in the 70s and the 80s and back then, somebody else, you had to go to somebody and they had to like your music.
Right.
Now, only you have to like it, really.
Well,
So
you
yeah.
do, and you have to get a break. Well, now's a terrible time for music. In a way, Gene Simmons is right. Music is kind of dead because, like, back in the 80s and 70s, if you sold an album, you'd get $1 a record, which is a lot of money. If you sold a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if I stream a song, and that's why I always tell people, if you listen to my music, please download it. Don't stream it, because I get like 0.05 cents a stream. It's ridiculous. I've gotten paychecks with a nickel. I mean, it's ridiculous. And it's sad, that's just the way the music is now. It's these predatory companies that take everything,
Yeah.
That's why I try to do as much of myself as I can,
Yeah. I was having a conversation with somebody one time about, are you familiar with the story with Badfinger?
Oh, what a great band.
Oh my God. They were so good, weren't they?
So sad. What a great band. And they could have been the next Beatles.
Yeah. I mean, they were, if not the next Beatles, they were going to be big. They should have been big.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was talking to somebody about them and about how their manager Stan Pauly ripped them off and Warner Brothers pulled the album. And he just said, well, why didn't he just release their music themselves? And I said, well, they couldn't do that back then.
Nobody thought of doing that.
Yeah. Nobody thought of doing that.
And there was no like fulfillment companies back then. So it wasn't like you could, okay, we'll make this album, and then we'll have this company send it out for us. No, that was it. I mean, you had to. It wasn't so decompartmentalized as it is now, where if people make an Indiegogo project, there's a company they can go to that'll mail out all their stuff. They didn't have that back then. You had to do so that was the problem. I mean, and I think the one guy, Ham, hung himself, right?
Pete Ham, yeah. Pete Ham, sadly.
And then the other guy did it a couple months later or something.
Sadly, Pete Ham, he hung himself in his garage back in 75, and Tom Evans hung himself in 83. And
then I think Ham had in his letter, he goes, "That bastard,
that soulless bastard, Stan Pauly."
Wow. Yeah, what a great band.
I know, it was really tragic, but like I said, the conversation was that, why didn't they release the music themselves? I'm like, listen, it's the 1970s. There was no internet. There was no iTunes. There was no Google. There was nothing. Right. Nothing. Somebody comes to you with a contract. Hey, kid, how you doing? Hey, I like your stuff. Want to make records? Oh, geez, I don't know. Come on. You want to flip burgers? You want to bag groceries? You want to make records? And you signed anything.
And you're so hungry then. You just sign it. You don't think, I'm going to read every single freaking paragraph of this 25-page, contract, And it was a nightmare for those guys. It breaks the heart what happened to them. And then you have actually good guys that, like, believe it or not, Gene Simmons is one of them, because he's the one who found Van Halen. Mm-hmm. And he had him in the studio, but then he had to go out and do a tour, and he didn't want these guys sitting around doing nothing. So he said, look, I'm going to rip up your contract, but I'm going to pass your music on to other people. And they got picked up by the time they got back from the Kiss tour. So, you better hope you get someone good, with a manager and that sort of thing. And I was approached back in the, I would say the late 90s for a manager. And I said, no, I'll do it myself. And my dad was, he has a degree in education, stuff like that, but he's really good at business, and he had his own business. So he would look over stuff, and this doesn't look good. This does look good, so it was better. What would be the dream band of late 60s? If everyone was all alive, I would say for drums, and he still is alive, I would get Bill Bruford from Yes. For bass, I would get Stanley Clarke, probably. He's still alive. For a guitar, I would, and he passed away, unfortunately, Alan Holdsworth. If you guys do not know where Alan Holdsworth is, a lot of people don't. do yourself a favor and check out Alan Holdsworth, especially the Tony Williams Lifetime band with him. That guy was a monster on guitar. He did everything before anybody did anything on guitar. It was just a monster guitar player. Chris Squire, that's probably my second choice. A great pick. I love Yes. Yes is a huge influence on my music.
Yeah. Like I said, I have no problems with any of those picks. But like we were going back to the 70s, like I said, all the innovations that came out of the 70s too.
Right.
You know, as much as I poo-poo guys like Boston, I'm not a huge fan of Boston, but they were all MIT students and they invented a lot of those processors and stuff like that. We owe them a huge debt, really.
Yeah, Tom Schultz. I mean, the first wireless guitar was him. And that whole sound of his, it wasn't even a fucking amp. That's the most amazing thing about Tom. I mean, it was an amp live, obviously.
Yeah.
But in the studio, it was just a little box. Everything came from that box. Steve Howe is one of my top 5 influences. Absolutely.
See, when I think Steve Howe, I think of the guy who's pitched for the Yankees, Steve Howe. There's this guy, the same exact name.
You know what? I was looking up pictures, and I'm not a big sports guy. The only sports thing that I do is I love Formula One racing. But I was
Formula One's cool, yeah.
I was looking up pictures of Steve Howe, and I'm like, who's this guy with the baseball? I keep so I'm like, so that explains it. Okay. But yeah, I mean, with Boston, I mean, all that was a little box, and he got this amazing sound in the studio, and I think that's one of the reasons why there's not that many live albums for Boston in the 70s, because it was impossible to replicate that on stage, that same sound on stage. You know, that's why a lot of acoustics sounded like shit in the 70s, because, you know, there wasn't like Ovations, that type of guitar. It was, you stuck a mic up to the acoustic and wished for the best, you know. But Tom Schultz was great. Boston, I mean, I could take him or leave him, but I always say, like, I would take the worst band of the 70s over the best band of now. I think, you know, the musicianship now is not even close.
Well, you know what? I
love Jimmy too. I love Jimmy too.
This is me putting on my old man hat and saying, you know, back in my day, you know, but I don't know what happened. I keep pointing out to this. I don't know if you're a fan of them, but 1991, I always say, is the year that the guy on stage wasn't nearly as cool as the guy in the audience, because you had REM. They were, to me, sort of the breaking point of a lot of things. I'm like, you used to have, like I said, like guys, Steven Tyler, like, you know, and Keith Moon would drive a car into a swimming pool, and you know, it was just a lot more fun. Even if you were into punk in that scene, even though they were angry, they were still having fun. You know, then you have Michael Stipe get on stage.
Yeah, I mean,
to me,
respect to REM, it wasn't my scene. Nirvana was never my scene. Here's the problem. What happened was, you had amazing guitarists and amazing bands in the 60s and 70s and 80s for the most part. You would get some, but by the end of the 80s, there are some bad, which I would say metal, like, that was getting popular. That was just not that good. I'm not going to mention them, but and so when Nirvana came in, it was a breath of fresh air for some people. For me, it wasn't, because, and I'll be the first one to admit that I'm a snob when it comes to guitar, and
that's fine. I'm a snob too. So,
and I'm sorry, that band never impressed me. You know, Soundgarden I liked, but Alice in Chains, or not Alice in Chains. Yeah, I loved Alice in Chains. But I don't consider them grunge. I think they just came out at the same time. But that was a metal band. I don't care what anybody says. I'll fight them tooth and nail. Alice in Chains is a kick-ass metal band. They just happened to come out in Seattle at the same time as those other people. But like the Pearl Jam and Nirvana, that never appealed to me. And what happened was the musicianship bar got lower.
Yeah.
And so then you had bands coming in like Korn and Limp Bizkit. And if you like them, that's awesome. But it was just kind of not that hard to play the guitar. It was kind of easy. And and then Rage Against the Machine came out, and that was another easy band to it just. And so I remember whenever the late '90s roll around, I'm teaching guitar full time, and I'd have kids come in. Hey, I want to learn this Rage Against the Machine song. Okay, and then 20 minutes later, I'm like, well, we still got about 20 minutes left of the lesson. What do you want to learn now? You know, and it's like you try doing that with the Randy Rhoads solo. You know, it might take like a month or two before a kid gets it. You know, so that was my problem, and I think. When Nirvana came on the scene and later that new metal stuff, which I don't care for, I think that it sort of killed the industry in a way that they were then looking for like the next Zeppelin or the next Beatles, and they still haven't found it.
Yeah. Now let me ask you about you're currently in. Do you mind saying where you're located or?
No. I live in Pittsburgh.
Okay, you're from Pittsburgh. I'm in New Haven currently. Okay. Now when you've always been in Pittsburgh? I was about to ask you what was it like playing in and around Pittsburgh when you were younger?
Well, it was fantastic, especially from the jazz point of view, because Pittsburgh, people don't realize there are a lot of good musicians that come out of Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
George Benson's from Pittsburgh, Jack McDuff's from Pittsburgh, Stanley Turntine's from Pittsburgh. A lot of great jazz musicians from Pittsburgh. The what's his name? The Riddler. What was his name? Frank Gorshin.
Oh, Frank Gorshin. Yeah,
he's from Pittsburgh, and he was a hell of a jazz singer. People don't realize that. So I was lucky that I got taught by one of the best jazz players on the East Coast. His name's Anthony Janflone, and he taught me. And then he used to take me to gigs and let me sit in with him. And then eventually he just was like, "Hey, dude, you're on your own. Go for it." And then I used to play in clubs. And this is why I get really annoyed with people that are like, people that are so obsessed with race now and you know, this intersectionality bullshit. I used to be in clubs at 3:00 in the morning where I was the only white guy, and I didn't even notice. I didn't even give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
I was just there to play jazz. That's all I was there for.
Yeah, Sandra Hammer's like, yes, the very famous mugshot of Jim.
Oh,
Jim Morrison.
We got drunk on stage, right?
Yeah. He said the F word on stage. Yeah,
that was taboo then. You couldn't say it.
Yeah, I could actually. I was going to bring Mecca around to. I was going to bring people. I always bring people around. Okay, this is a spot where Jim Morrison got his head beat in by the cops. This is it's the FBI building now. The New Haven.
Is that
Arena.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's fitting. No, but it was a great place to learn jazz because you had so many jazz musicians that were so willing to work with kids that were 20 years their junior and you know, weren't the same skin color, you know, Lord forbid, you know, that, you know, people get along, they're different races, and they were so patient, and I would do gigs with a lot of different people, and it was fantastic. And so all through the 90s I played in jazz clubs all through Pittsburgh, and then around the late 90s, I went back to my first love, which was progressive rock and metal. And I haven't done a jazz gig since, but I'd like to go back and do something someday. But Pittsburgh is a weird town. I try to tell people, like, someone as amazing like Yngwie Malmsteen will barely fill a club here in Pittsburgh, but he'll fill out the Budokan in Japan. And it's funny because all of the records that I'm selling are in Japan and England, or I'm selling next to nothing here in America.
Yeah. Well, New Haven's a weird kind of place. Like I said, there's people that used to like to talk about the music scene,
right? But
there really wasn't one,
right?
And a lot of people, oh, this is great music. This is great, man. We're doing it. I'm like, please, whatever you're doing, please stop. Whatever it is, I don't know what it is. Just stop. And it'd be like, there'd be 10 guys and I'd be number 11. So there'd be the joke of like, well, we don't know you. I'm like, well, yeah. Okay. New guy, new energy, new, you know, new ideas, but this guy's got experience. Like, yeah, but he's been in 10 bands that have gone nowhere. He's a failure. Right. Well, he's a proven failure. I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, and I was joking that I was going to take the 3 other guys or two or 3 other guys that were also the Cast-Offs. We were going to form a band called the Castaways or the Recyclers, because or something stupid like that. So
that'd be a good idea, actually.
yeah, the Castaway. Yeah, the Castaways. The Cast-Offs.
That's not a bad bet. What are you asking, Mecca?
What's Mecca? What? Why? What? What's this? What? Why? Who? When? Why? Who's on first? The crop circle guy? Cue the crop circle.
But it is. I have a hard time selling here. I don't know why. Black Star is awesome. Black Star. For some reason, I mean, progressive rock was popular here, but it was never as popular as it is, overseas, where it started. So I do sell much better in England and in Japan. I'm in more magazines in England than here.
Oh, she heard her name. I was saying about, I was going to show Mecca the spot where Jim Morrison got his head split open by the police. Yeah.
So it's kind of tough now to be a band and be especially now with COVID.
Perhaps. Yeah. I mean, like I said, guys like, Frank Zappa were always much bigger in Europe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, Zappa's a huge influence of mine too. And people don't realize is that that dude was straight sober the whole time. I mean, the only thing that Zappa did was smoke tobacco. That was it. And everybody in his band had to be sober. And what would happen is that if he caught somebody doing pot or doing something, the guy would come to you and say, "Do you want aisle seat or window?" Because then your ass was sent home on the next thing. And it made sense because you had to be straight sober to play his stuff because it's so damn complicated. So I can't really tell you why I'm not getting the sales here. I'd love to, but
well, it's like I always say, even there has been a case like like a lot of times Americans aren't appreciated in their homeland.
No, well, look at Jimi. I'm not saying I'm Jimi Hendrix, but Hendrix had to go to England to get discovered.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the big thing is that progressive rock, I'm already in a hole to begin with. I mean, it isn't like it's pop rock or rap or even metal, even. And I love metal, but it's not even like I'm that. So I'm already in a hole there, and I'm also not dropping the N-word or bitch. Smack my bitch up every 5 seconds, and so it's I'm behind an 8 ball to begin with, but I'm just happy my music's getting heard. There was a radio station last week that played me in Palestine, and another one week before played me in Israel. I'm like, how fucking
that's
cool
awesome.
Is that? How great is that?
You're globally you're a global recording artist,
and unlike Roger Waters, who I love to death as a musician, I would play both places. I wouldn't. I wouldn't just say screw you to one and not the other. So, I would play both places. That's my biggest complaint about musicians is the ego that comes. Like, I know everything about politics. Just ask me. It's like, dude, all I want to do, and as much as I love Ted Nugent, he's just as bad on the other side. And I may share a lot of Ted's views, but I just don't want to hear it, and I don't want to tell people. It's not my business. I mean, I want Gideon's mob fans that are left, right, up, down. I don't care what political spectrum you are, just as long as you like good music and you buy my album. That's all I care about, And I think a lot of that, I get annoyed with any famous person that gets into politics online. Like the only thing that I talk about online, which I don't think it's a political or it's not a side thing. It's a free speech thing. I'm a devout free speech absolutist. I can't stand like Michael Moore, but I'll fight for his right to say whatever he wants. I'm one of those guys. And I think now with a lot of the censorship and the cancer culture stuff, a lot of this cancel culture stuff is like the modern day PMRC.
Oh yeah.
A lot of you people that are on listening that don't know the PMRC, those were the congressmen's wives that sorted the labels on records. We can thank them for. But that's what they are. They're modern day Puritans. And so I will fight back against stuff like that online, cancel culture or free speech issues. But like saying, you know, we should tax this or tax that, or I don't give a shit. I'm just here to play music. You know, and as much as I love Roger Waters and Pink Floyd's one of my biggest influences, he needs to keep his mouth shut. Just play your damn music, Raj. Just shut up and play your music.
Yeah.
It speaks enough as it is. You don't need to add anything to it, you know.
You know, the first time I saw Paul McCartney, December 14th, 1989, Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
He actually brought an environmental group on tour with him. He didn't preach about it. They had stands set up all over the garden.
Yeah.
And then just for a brief 30 seconds, oh yeah, we got some people here from Friends of the Earth. They're an environmental
Very
group.
good impression.
Jeez. I've been listening to him long enough. I should be doing good. Well, you know, go out, check the tables, see what they're about, because we've only got one planet, man. We've got to take care of it. Okay, thank you very much. You know, that was it. That was it. I'm like, okay, if you're gonna do it that way.
Even that it's like a universal thing. Like he's right. It's all one planet, you know. And and I'm a big conservation guy. Like I think we should pick up, keep the place clean, that sort of thing. Like that should be a universal thing, you know.
Yeah, that's not really political. That's not really a political kind of thing,
right?
You know, hey, don't put your trash in the trash can,
right?
Clean up. Don't dump your motor oil into your backyard, you know, in a hole in the ground. I mean, that's common sense, you know. Right. Come on,
right?
We got ways of taking care of that,
right? I mean, it's laziness, is what it is, but like I said, I mean, I think that, I think that there's a time and place for that, and like that example is a great example of how it can work.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's so many examples when it doesn't work, you know.
Oh yeah,
and then you're just lecturing people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get more people with honey than you do, you know, vinegar. You know, and I always say you can, you know, if you be kind and stuff like that. That's one of the problems with the comic book industry. Why it's so bad, because all they do is lecture you in the comics. They don't even.
Oh yeah.
You know, I just want to be entertained for 24 pages. I don't want to be lectured to. And if you're going to lecture me, at least make it across the board and lecture me on left and right, you know, not just one side, you know. What's great about science fiction, or even any type of writing, whether it's a song or a film or a TV show, if it's subtle and the essential part, the music or the film is good, you can get a political message across and not be lecturing, you know. Mm-hmm. There's two songs. The first Gideon's Mob album, there's a song called The Demon is Wild, and it's about a politician, but you wouldn't know that. And then there's a song off of the last album, Space Cadet Supernova, which is called the Taming of the Shrew, which is also about a politician. And again, there's very few people that know who politicians they are. They're probably not the people that are going to know. But it's very overt. It's not very overt. It's very subtle. And that's the best way, I think, of changing minds, to do it subtly. Than, you know, said over.
Yeah. You know, I always say that the best way to reach people is to convince them, is to make them not realize you're reaching them.
Exactly.
Because I'm a big Star Trek fan, except for what they've done recently. I love the Orville.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was, and I said that when you can make someone bring up something by example, when you do something by example, and then you make someone say, well, yeah, you know what? There was that exact same thing on the Orville last week. Oh, that's like, okay, that's when you reach people, that because now you're provoking someone to think.
Right.
Yeah. And I said, I just hate to be preached to by either side.
Well, I think that's the problem, is that they're not hiring people that have the ability to do that anymore. Like, I give you, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan.
Oh yeah.
And in the 80s, there was a story with the Doctor fighting this evil person in this, I forget what the name of that thing was, but it was a metaphor for Margaret Thatcher. Well, I didn't know that until years later, because it was so damn subtle. And And that's the way to do it. If you make it subtle, and you now everything is so overt, it's ridiculous, and all you're doing is pissing people off and turning them off, and people on both sides of the aisle just want to be entertained, whether it be music or and they want an escape, and if that's the reason why we watch science fiction or space fantasy, or we read a comic book, or we listen to music. We want to escape from the shit that's out there now.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you do it subtly, you can talk about what's going on out there in your art, but again, make it very subtle and make it very, non-lectury.
Yeah.
That's a word. I made it up.
Yeah.
You could do that,
Yeah. I mean, there's a great episode of the Star Trek, the original series, Balance of Power, which is actually a commentary on the Vietnam War.
Right.
We must maintain that balance of power so that neither side becomes too powerful.
That's the cheer-ons, right? With the black and white.
Yeah. No. That's the one where
that's
Kirk gets
last battlefield. That's last battlefield.
May this be your last battlefield. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one where the Mogatu bites Kirk.
Yes.
And that.
Yeah. That's a great episode.
That is really good. Captain, what did you ask for? Beam down more Satans for the Garden of Eden. Yeah. So
you did good impressions.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I do don't get me started. I'll be here all night.
Can you do Christopher Lee?
Christopher Lee? He goes, smoke rises in the east. Yeah, that's he goes, I was raised in the circus, Mr. Bond. My only friend was a magnificent bull elephant. One day his handler mistreated him. He goes, yeah, I was like Mr. Christopher Lee is Scaramanga. That
was so good.
Yeah,
he's my favorite actor of all time, Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee was a vampire when vampires were still scary, not when they sparkled.
He's the best vampire ever. He's the best Dracula ever. I'll go to my grave thinking that. So, yes,
it sounds more like Sean Connery. Well, I don't know. I sometimes I can't do the projection very well when I do an impression. I could do Gene Simmons. This is Gene Simmons. Gene Simmons of Kiss. It's Gene Simmons. Kiss invented everything. Kiss invented the military. The Kiss Army. Kiss. This is Gene Simmons of Kiss. So yeah.
It sounds just like him.
Oh yeah. Good. So there's a freaking net around here again. Anyway. So yeah, we're coming up on 1 hour. As I said, I usually like to only have these things run an hour. We can go a little longer if we want to, but I don't like to feel I'm holding my guest hostage. So
that's no problem.
Yeah. So, but like I said, the Pittsburgh music scene, a lot of jazz influence, a lot of
jazz, a lot of metal in Pittsburgh, and like I said, when I was younger, I was like a sponge. I just soaked up all that stuff, and then eventually, when I started to write my own stuff, I sort of incorporate jazz, classical, metal, rock, and then finally clicked. I should just go full prog, and that's when I started to do it. And I formed Gideon's Mob, and I had a band before Gideon's Mob called Sour Brain, which is my name. If you rearrange my letters, it's Sour Brain, which is perfect explanation of what I'm like. But that was only a one album project, and it didn't go anywhere. But then after that, I formed Gideon's Mob, and it's just straight progressive rock. And I would do gigs in Pittsburgh and surrounding areas, that sort of thing. And the first album sold really good, enough that the magazine and a couple magazines in the UK had me in. And then the last album, Space Cadet Supernova, sold really good. But then I think it would have sold even more if COVID hadn't have hit.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, and I totally understand the funds weren't there for a lot of people. So for them to waste money on music, and I totally get that. So it didn't sell as good, but it was selling almost as good as the first one. So I'm hoping the third one will knock them both out of the park. And that's what we're working on, Sonic Library now. And then that album, Sonic Library, is the first full concept album we're doing. And it's basically, it's a library in the year 6000 that it's basically the whole album. Every song is a different song. It's a different novel from the Victorian era in England.
Oh wow.
So far we've recorded the modern Prometheus / Frankenstein. We've recorded. We haven't recorded Yummy. Let me see what else. We recorded the Picture of Dorian Gray. We've recorded The Curious Case of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Now we're currently working on Dracula. And then we probably have 2 more tunes, and then that'll probably finish it up. It's probably 6 or 7 tunes total. But each one is a specific book from the Victorian era of England, because that's my favorite era of writing, of fiction. And the last song is going to be Through the Looking Glass, and hopefully he said he'd do it, and hopefully he'll come through. We're going to have Dana Snyder play the voice of the rabbit.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so hopefully he can still do it. But yes, there's going to be a little. That's probably going to be the longest tune on the album, and there'll be a little skit in the middle when Alice first comes out of the hole and finds the rabbit. But I'm going to slang it up a little bit and have him say, "I can't talk, toots. I got to do this." Because Dana Snyder, if you could picture him with the Master Shake voice saying that, it'd be perfect. That'll be done. Hopefully the whole album will be done by March of next year. That's the goal.
I was when did you start writing the album?
Sonic Library, I started right at the tail end of recording the last album. One song, and then I took about 5 or 6 months off last year I had sporadic gigs. I didn't have a lot because of COVID. And so basically I took the rest of the year mostly off. And then around Christmas last year, I started writing this one. And then from the music point of view, lyrics always come in last. Every artist is different. I'm a little bit different, where I like to write out each piece of music completely done, and then record everything, and then write the lyrics. It's an odd way of doing it. Bands I've been in before, they don't operate like that, but it just seems to work for me. That lyrics will go in dead last, and the vocals will go in dead last. So it's usually how I work it.
Yeah, and I mean, you have a home. Yeah, it's all done in home studio.
Home studio, and then I have a buddy who has a studio too, and then I mix a lot of it at his place. But I have weird hours, and what's weird is for Space Cadet Supernova, I did Zappa's way, and I slept all day and got up at 11 o'clock and recorded from 12 midnight to 6, and then I'd get up and then eat dinner and then go to bed, and then it was weird. I did that for 6 or 7 months, and I have never been able to get back on a normal sleep schedule since. It's crazy. So now I'm trying to do a better sleep schedule, but I'm not doing the midnights recording sessions anymore. I think that's the best time to record, but it's this time, being 48, sleep is very important now, and I don't. I have a hard time sleeping normally now. So.
I keep saying, when I was younger, and you probably know this too, you'd look at the clock and say it's 11 o'clock. Now you look at the clock, say 11 o'clock time. Oh man, it's getting late. But then you think back, 11 o'clock, that's when your night was just beginning.
You're ready to go. That's like when I first met my wife. We've been together since 1999. And when we first started dating, she lived about an hour, 20 minutes away. And so every time I went to saw her, it was like a good long drive each time. And we both said, there's no way in hell if we met now it would work, because 7 o'clock, my PJs are on. Well, my PJs are always on, but I mean, 7 o'clock, I head to bed. That's just And so there's no way in hell I can do the late night recording like I used to. But so I've been trying to get most of it done during the day, and hopefully it'll be done again. My goal is March of next year, and then about a month but a week. We did it smart this time, where each song, after it's been recorded, we mixed it. So it wasn't like we recorded the whole album and then went and mixed it, which is the first 2 albums we did. That's a pain in the ass, because then you forget what was fresh in your mind when you were recording it. So what we did was when we recorded everything, then we would take it and go to my buddy's studio and then mix it all there, and then that song is put to bed, done, finished. And so by the time March rolls around, everything will be done, and then we can send it out and get it pressed and put out and everything. So that's the goal. That's the goal.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, it's good to see. Good, you're getting impressed. Good to hear you're doing physical copies. I mean, rather than just.
That was my goal. I have to have CDs because it just, you miss something from a digital. You know, when you have a CD, you can open up the booklet, look at the art, appreciate it. And I've hired and for the first 3 albums, I've hired all Comics Gate artists, all independent artists, and the art's been fantastic on the first 2. The art's on this new one is going to blow the first 2 away. So I'm really excited about that. And so we'll see what happens.
Was this rock and roll? What bands can really sing? What do you mean? What do I mean by this? Well, for example, even though Aerosmith is a good song, I can't stand how they sang. Well,
I think it depends on what you like. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
like to me, John Anderson from Yes has a beautiful voice. David Coverdale has an amazing voice. He still has an amazing voice. Robert Plant did have an amazing voice. The stuff from Zeppelin in the 70s is amazing. Now, that's a great example. You bring up Guns N' Roses. I love Guns N' Roses. I just can't stand Axl's voice. I think Slash is amazing. I think Slash is that whole band. Now, Heart, another great band. Annie Wilson's a banshee. You know, I like Stevie Nicks too. My favorite female singer, though, of all time is in a band that a lot of people don't know. It's called Renaissance, and it's her singer. The singer's name's Annie Wilson or Annie Haslam, and her voice is just amazing. She's like an angel. And but Ann Wilson's another one of my favorite female singers. Like another male singer, probably my top 3 male singers are probably Freddie Mercury, Ronnie James Dio, and Bruce Dickinson. Those are probably my top.
Yeah. That's about singers. I mean, like you said, it depends on who you like.
Yeah.
I mean, I love, I love the Ramones. Am I going to say Joey Ramone is a great singer? No.
But
for what they do,
awesome. It fits perfectly.
For what they do, yeah. I mean, it fits perfectly.
It's a brilliant band. I mean, and then you have someone like Johnny Rotten, who, whether it's with the Sex Pistols or Public Image, his voice fits perfectly for both bands. It's great.
Yeah.
But all those punk bands, Clash is my favorite. Clash is just a badass band.
I was a big New York Dolls fan.
New York Dolls is a great band. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's another thing. Dave Johansen.
Yep.
Yeah, his voice fits perfectly for what they do.
He's a good jazz singer too. People don't realize that.
I saw him in his Buster Poindexter phase.
Yeah, it was really good. He's a good singer.
Oh yeah, yeah. Another one of my favorites actually is T-Rex. I love Mark Bowen.
Monster singer, monster writer, underrated guitar player. Taken way too soon. I have a mini clubman because of Mark Bowen. That's how much I love Mark Bowen and T-Rex. I think people overlook him a lot, especially in the States, because Bang a Gong is popular here, but that's about it. There's so much more amazing stuff that T-Rex did that people don't listen to, and they should. That's a band that everybody should have in their collection because it's fantastic.
At some run was when 74, 75, he just said, you know what, I'm never going to be big in the US. That's it. And just kind of, that's it. Just packed in. And then he had a resurgence in the UK.
Right.
Well, yeah. But there is no guy, you could say whatever, but I mean, if there's a guy that epitomizes the word rock star, I would probably have to say it's Mark Bowen.
Oh yeah, he's up there. And even people forget the side projects like the song Mama Bell by ELO. He played the guitar on it. And then you listen to it, and then when I first heard that song, I love ELO, but when I first heard the song, I'm like, man, that guitar sounds great. Who is that? And they're like, that's Mark Bowen. You know, that
Oh,
just came in on a thing.
Yeah. My brother Dave saw him in 70, I think 73.
I'd want to see Who in the 70s. The 70s stuff of the Who is the best part.
Oh yeah.
When they got more proggier. That's my favorite Who era.
Yeah, I would love to see Badfinger, the original guys.
Yep. So
I mean,
I'd like to see Zeppelin at their prime.
Hmm.
I'd like to see Zeppelin in like 69, 70. That's when I'd want to see them.
Yeah. Someone said I'd probably say the Beatles. Of course, I'm going to say I want to see the Beatles. Are you kidding me?
Well, here's the problem. I would see the Beatles in an alternate universe where they played together past the 60s, and they played in clubs, in venues where you could hear them. Because I know people that went and saw the Beatles, and you couldn't even fucking hear them because the girl's screaming.
Yeah.
So, and amplification in the early 60s was absolute shit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would see them in an alternate reality where they stayed together. Put it that way.
Did you ever hear about that guy? He says he went to he went to a parallel universe and where the Beatles are still together, and he brought back a tape, and it's just all like mashups of their solo material.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called Everyday Chemistry.
So basically, he took their solo stuff and said it was. That over in that universe, it was the. Yeah. I believe you, pal. I believe.
I think it's just one of those art, quote unquote, art projects. You know.
Yeah. That's pretty funny though.
Yeah, it is. It is actually pretty funny. He says this very elaborate story about it. If you look it up, it's actually pretty interesting read. It's this very well woven tale. But
you think about like the infinite universes theory, that could very well be possible.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt there's a universe that the if there's a alternate reality where the Beatles are still together.
I always say that in another reality we got 2 more Rocketeer, Phantom, and Shadow movies instead of 25,000 Fast and Furious movies.
Well, I always say about the Fast and Furious movies is man drive car fast works in any language.
That's true.
Yeah. So I mean, actually, hold on. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. I always say that I have the very first. This is still actually from the very first Fast and Furious movie. Hold on. As we know, like I said, the Fast and Furious movies, where the heck is it? They go back a long way. Just how far back do they go? Well, apparently, they go all the way back to the Stone Age.
There you go. The best show when I was a kid growing up was the Wacky Races.
I love Wacky Races, yeah.
Did you ever see this French car commercial with the Wacky Races?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
That is, you know what? That was, when I saw that, I saw it earlier this year. That was better than anything I've seen on, like, American film in years. Mm-hmm. And it was just a 45-second commercial. I'm like, you talk about respecting the source material. They did an amazing job. Yeah,
there's actually a Renault commercial with the characters. Do you remember the cartoon Dungeons and Dragons? It used to be on Saturday mornings.
That cartoon's awesome. That commercial's awesome too.
Yeah, with those characters, which is I like. Wow,
the same director. It might be the same director.
Might be.
And because it's almost that same era of cartoons almost.
Yeah, man drive car very fast, woman mad because man won't stop. Yeah. Some things are universal. Yeah.
My wife's bad at directions. Like she doesn't know her left from her right. Literally, my wife is one of the smartest people I've ever met. She's an absolute genius. But if she'll say make a left, and then I'll make a left, she goes, "What are you doing? It's down here." I'm like, "Yeah, that's right." So I mean, yeah. So I do ask for directions for her because we'll end up going to the wrong place every time.
I have a GPS. I don't need to ask for directions anymore.
You don't have to. That's right. You don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. I always say, is my favorite piece of military technology adapted for civilian use.
Is that where it originally started from?
Yeah. It's military technology. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was that or NASA.
Well, NASA put the satellites in space. So, I mean.
And then, okay.
Yeah. And then we kind of, they opened it up for civilian use. So, yeah. And that, and I think cordless tools actually are another one.
That makes sense, though.
Yeah. Gotta have tools in the field,
Right.
Okay, so anyway, we are coming up on hour 15 minutes. Brian, you're a terrific guest. Tell us, tell everyone. We're gonna wrap here. Tell everyone where they can find your music. Tell them and go out and listen to Gideon's Mob. Everybody,
you can buy Gideon's Mob's first album and their second album, Space Cadet Supernova, at iTunes, Apple, Amazon, CD Baby, Bandcamp, and then you can get it on CD at eBay and Amazon. And you can also follow me at Twitter at Gideon's Mob Band 1 on Twitter, at Gideon's Mob Band 1. And I'm always on there making an ass out of myself, so you'll get a good kick out of that. And I'm also on YouTube. You can check out my YouTube channel as well. It's hold on, I hardly ever go on my YouTube. I need to develop my YouTube a lot better than I should. It's basically, you can go in the Gideon's Mob in the search, and you'll get the Gideon's Mob YouTube page. And on the YouTube channel, you can hear every Gideon's Mob song we've recorded so far. And there's a SoundCloud page as well. You can find us that has every Gideon's Mob song. Now, the songs on SoundCloud aren't mixed. So if you like what you hear, download the originals at the sites I just told you, and you'll hear better versions. So absolutely.
Brian,
thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. I had fun.
Hey, let me tell you, this has been really good. I like this. We're gonna have you. If this on the record thing takes off, we're gonna have you back. I'll bring you back for the pop culture show too.
I'd love the other pop culture. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I said, we were talking G.I. Joe before, right? And what's your favorite G.I. Joe character?
Well, I always say Snake Eyes, but I always say Stalker is probably my close second.
I like Flint for some reason. I don't know why. He's got that sort of that veterans kind of been there, kind of
Yeah, he was cool.
He was cool.
Yeah, but Stalker and Snake Eyes are my favorite.
Yeah. So. All right, Brian Urso.
I appreciate it.
Everybody, check out Gideon's Mob. Buy their music. Brian's been a great guest. Like I said, we're gonna have him back on Naps. Everybody, we'd like to thank you for joining us. And this is On the Record. We are on the record, and we will catch you next time.